Alrighty, in this video we're going to take a quick look at changing the color of an action bar. Doesn't sound so exciting, and it really isn't. However, I wanted to take a quick opportunity to discuss styles and themes just a little bit more. We're not going to go into too much depth about them, or really any depth at all, but I wanted to show you guys a quick, just kind of get a feel for them. Kind of show you guys how you can have a unique theme per activity, and you can have different parameters in each theme and all that stuff. There's not going to be a whole lot of code in this video. It's going to be very short, but it'll get you guys kind of just another look at styles and themes within Android. And this video will basically conclude our discussion of action bars. So let's go ahead and get started. For the application name, it's really irrelevant, but I'm going to go ahead and use something relatively descriptive and do something like action bar colors. For the minimum SDK compatibility, I'll go with 4.2, and we'll start off with a blank activity. Why not? Hit finish. All right, the project is being created. You'll just have to trust me on that one because you can't see it yet. Oh, there it is. Alrighty. So, if I were to hit play now, you will see that we have an action bar. Somewhere. Where's my emulator? Well, that's building. I need to go find my emulator. And we'll go ahead and click OK. Okay, we see something that we've seen a million times before. We have a black action bar at the top. So how would we go about changing that to be a different color? Let's say blue. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and open up our theme. So let's go ahead and close these files out. I'm going to open up values styles.xml. Now styles really isn't the fact that this file's name styles is relevant. I'm pretty sure I pointed this out before, but every single XML file that lives under this values folder is basically the same kind of resource. They're basically just collections of textual resourcey thingies, like styles and strings and dimensions. And yes, I'm cheating by just reading off those things on the folder structure. But basically, yeah, things you can describe in text that kind of don't fit into any other category. So in this case, our styles.xml file is just a conveniently named location to place our styles and our themes. And in this case, you see that we have a theme already, app theme, which is derived from the app.compat light dark action bar theme. Now what's cool about themes is they controls, like views and view groups inside of your application, can pick up on attributes defined in our theme. Meaning I can come in here and I can specify values that I want that will change the behavior and the appearance of other controls within my application. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, how do you find out which values to put here, what their names are? Well, it really depends. It depends on what controls you're using, what views you're using. The views themselves get to decide which attributes they're going to pull that from your theme that you defined. So you really have to look at documentation to figure out which is which. What styles, what attributes do we place in our app theme to get the desired effect? But in essence, these styles, these themes, allow us to override what was baked into the default of these particular controls. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to introduce a new value. I'm going to go ahead and introduce a value that specifies what's referred to as the primary color in Lollipop. So I'm going to say item with a name, that's not how you spell name, with a name equal to color primary. Now I'm not going to use the Android prefix because this color primary attribute is going to be picked up by the app.compat library, which again isn't part of Android. It's a part of the support library. So I'm going to not use the Android namespace for this and instead leave it like this, color primary. Then I'm going to go ahead and close that off, and then I'm going to put in a color. Now the color I chose here is something like something that would look good on a dark or light text, something like 1976 D2. There we go. So I pulled this out of the material design color guideline. All right, so what is color primary? Well, color primary in material design is used to refer to basically the bright primary color that particular activities may have. And in app.compat and in Lollipop, the color primary value is going to be used to determine the background of the app bar. So now we can go ahead and hit play, and we'll notice here, just in a second, when it gets... Oh, come on. Go away. We now notice that the action bar color's background has changed. So that's really cool. That's a really useful feature. We'll be using that, definitely. There's a couple other things we could do. Like, for example, we could do the color accent. I can say name equals color accent. And I can go ahead and give this an accent color, like maybe a 8C9EFF. I don't know how good this is going to look. It might look terrible. Ooh, did I mess it up? 8C9EFF. 8C9G space. Apparently I can't type tonight. Alright, so now I have my accent color. Accent color is also picked up. I really should have copied and pasted that, should I? That would have been significantly less embarrassing. Okay, so our accent color is used for things like checkboxes. So for example, if I came in here into my menu and I changed my item, my single item, my settings item into checkable equals true and hit play, you'll notice that the accent color is used for that. So when I click on this, notice how that accent color now appears. When I hold down, it appears around that checkbox. So the accent color is used for accent-y type things. Whenever the system needs a secondary color on the action bar, it's going to use that. And there's a bunch of other attributes we can use. I'm not going to go into them really at all because you can just check them out. If you want to do a specific thing, like, for example, change the text color of the action bar, just Google change the text color of an action bar. And you'll very likely, if the person knows what they're doing, you'll get a specific value, a specific attribute to put into your theme. And this is where that would go. Alright, the last thing I want to do in this video is show you guys how we could have a custom theme per activity. This, again, is going to be a very, very straightforward thing, but I really want to demonstrate it to you guys so you can get a feel for how you can take advantage of the theme system within Android. We're also going to be using this ourselves while we build up the app to do things like having pop-up themes, for example. Themes that pop up, or sorry, pop-up activities. Activities that pop up over other activities. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, the first step is we would create a new theme. That would be the first step. Seems logical. So let's say I want to introduce a new activity into my application, and I want it to have its own theme. So again, the first step is to create that theme. So I'm going to say style, name equals, and I'm going to say apptheme.activity2. Very uninspired name. And I'm going to say parent equals apptheme. So what am I doing here? Well, I'm creating a whole new activity, or sorry, a whole new theme, and I'm saying copy all the values from the app theme. So all the values from the app theme get copied into this, and all the values from this app.compat theme get copied into that. So this kind of, you can see this as an inheritance hierarchy, something you'd be familiar with in something like Java classes or even CSS. Although this is significantly less flexible than CSS. Anyway, let's go ahead and specify a different color primary. So I'm going to say item name color primary. And I'm going to go ahead and let's make this purple. Let's do 5E35B1. Make it this dark purple color. So now that I have that set up, so how would I go about telling or specifying the theme on a per activity basis? It's pretty straightforward. The first thing I need to do is actually create the activity itself. So I'm going to right click over here on my packages, and I'm going to select new. I'm going to come down here to activity, and I'm going to select blank activity. And for the name, I'm going to say activity2. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit finish, and we now have a second activity. Then what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead, before I wire up this second activity to have the new theme, I'm going to wire up activity main to activity2 really quickly. I'm going to go over here into the text view of the activity main layout file. And I'm going to replace this text view with a button. With a width of match parent, a height of wrap content, a text of go to activity 2, and an on click of go to activity 2. Now, this on click method doesn't exist yet on the activity. So to do it, the easiest way to make this exist is to hit Alt Enter and say create go to activity 2 view in main activity. Hit Enter, and I now have the corresponding click handler for that particular event. And then inside of GoToActivity2, I'm simply going to say start activity, new intent, passing in this as the context and activity2.class as the activity. So this should be all very, very familiar to you guys who have gone through the Android Quick Start and the activity lifecycle videos. All right, so now that I've done that, now that I can navigate between activities, I can go ahead and hit play and show you guys what it'll look like now. Give it a year or two. Now I say, you see this? I say go to activity 2, and we're now in activity 2. But look at this. Activity 2, the color primary, is still the same as the first activity, which is problematic. To fix that, what I need to do is simply inform activity 2 that it needs to use this particular theme to render itself. You do that inside of the manifest. So let's go over here into the Project Explorer and come up here to the Manifest folder and select Android Manifest. Let's open that up and let's find our entry for activity 2. Now this entry for activity 2 was obviously created or added for us by the wizard that created the activity class when I right-clicked and selected Create Activity from Template. However, we need to slightly modify it in order for it to use a different theme. Basically, what I can do here is I can use the aptly named theme attribute and specify @style. Now, of course, @style, what does that mean? That means we're accessing a resource. @style / @theme dot activity 2. So you'll see up here on the application element, the application theme is still app theme, and the main activity doesn't specify its own theme, so therefore it defaults to the application theme. However, this theme is now being used in this activity and overriding this theme that was specified in the application. Let's hit play and see if that had any effect on our background. So you see right here in our main activity, we have a blue background on the action bar. When we switch over to activity 2, however, you now see it's purple. And that's because it's using that new theme. We could specify whatever theme we wanted. We didn't even need to inherit from our app theme. In fact, we could have come over here into our activity 2, our styles.xml file, and instead of inheriting from parent.app, instead of having the parent being set to app theme, I could have said theme.appcompat.dark. Or sorry, just theme.appcompat. That's the default dark. Now if I hit play, check out what happens. Go to activity 2, and it's now dark. So that's a really, really cool way to change the look and feel of your application on a per activity basis. It's really useful for things like I think settings menus, like setting options menus and stuff like that. I think that sort of stuff would be useful to have a contrasting theme than the rest of your application. And this is a way in which you'd be able to accomplish that. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about in this video. I do want to point out actually one interesting thing, just a nice little bit of, not necessarily trivia, but one of those things that's really nice to know, but don't know which video I'll be able to shoehorn it into, so I guess I'll do it now. Remember how earlier in the series, how we've been talking about contexts? When we started building up the app, we created our own application base class, for example. We have our app context, we have our app activity contexts, right? And the contexts are used for a whole bunch of different purposes, from accessing resources to displaying views. Well, if you wonder why it's like that, why you have to choose between passing in an app context and an activity context, is because contexts are themed. Because you can override a context on a per context basis, or the theme on a per context basis. You can have one activity that has one theme, another activity that has another theme. When you pass in contexts around your application to do different things, sometimes you're going to want to use your app context if you need a sort of themeless global singleton context. But if you're making a toast, for example, you're going to want to pass in an activity context usually, so that that toast can take information from the theme that's used on that particular activity. Just a nice little side note. It's kind of important to know when you start playing with context. We'll talk about it a little bit more in depth in later when we go into the app and start making more complicated views. But anyway, I think that pretty much wraps up all I wanted to do in this video, and it wraps up everything I wanted to say about action bars. At this point, you guys should be pretty comfortable with using them, pretty comfortable with creating option menus, handling option menus, extending the action bar, theming the action bar, and I think it's about time to move on to toolbars. Basically, we're not going to be seeing action bars the rest of the series. Like I said in an earlier video, toolbars replace action bars, and they're used very similarly, and you'll understand why I decided to do action bars first and then toolbars. Anyway, we'll see you guys in the next video.